Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, they're not going to be quiet. That's all right. So, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We have a panel on AI and finance. My name is Matt Taylor. I actually came up to Edmonton a few years ago to work with Borealis AI. So I'm very thankful to RBC and Borealis for bringing me up here. But I'm now a professor at the University of Alberta, 4 days a week. And 1 day a week, I am a fellow in residence at Amii. I do a lot of machine learning, but I'm really interested in how we get AI out of the lab and into the world. So I'm excited to be talking to our other two panelists. Maybe Parul, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe how you've recently been using AI.
Sure. So I'm Parul Cal. First of all, thank you, Amii and the team, for having us over. I'm from Service Credit Union. If people are wondering what a credit union is, I'll give you a little bit of overview of what credit union is and then about my role. So think about like banking. When you go for banking, within credit union space, if you open an account with us, with the credit union, you automatically become a member of the credit union. What that means is you get voting rights and you earn a minimum of $1 common share. So you have a say in whatever the company does, whatever direction it is taking. And also, guess what? You also get the profit share. So that's, in a nutshell, what is distinguishing credit unions from other FIs and banking in general. So just to give you an overview of what credit union is. So a lot of times I get this question, you work with a credit union, that's kind of, isn't that the place where old people go to, or like more mature, sorry, not old, more mature people go to, more seniors go to. And that's not the case. You know, we have members from different areas, different segments, different walks of life. So definitely just that misnomer, I wanted to pull that out of our discussion. And the reason I'm giving you this background is because as we think about new generation and as we think about the world changing around us, definitely we are seeing that a lot of things we do are all data driven. So services right now going through a lot of transformation and really looking at our current state and looking at how we can best play in the future. So with that said, data becomes the central theme of everything we do from a transformation perspective. So we truly want to build a data-driven organization with that human digital touch. So one of the, again, distinguishing factors of credit unions are they build those relationships and they focus very much on the relationships. And so towards that, my role is to help the organization with the data technology, help with the governance space, and then help utilize the data technology to solve business problems and create that business value for our members and our staff. So big title, I'm the leader of data governance, technology, and strategy at Service Credit Union. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here. My name's Ian Hargraves. I'm, whoa! Oh, I like that. Was the managing director of AI delivery at ATB Financial, moving into a fellow position, which is really exciting because I actually started about 7 years ago as the first person with the title data scientist at the organization. And so I've had the incredible opportunity to sort of see an organization, a financial services organization that knows that it manages a large stack of data, but that at the end of the day, they manage relationships and experiences and trust. And an organization that has been intensely curious, asking questions about, well, how do we use data as an asset thoughtfully to build trust and to create better experiences? And in the early days, that meant all kinds of things. It was sort of the Wild West. It was a lot of fun. It was very confusing. It involved buying lots of cups of coffee throughout the entire organization. But over the last couple years, we've really had the opportunity to borrow from the software development lifecycle, from agile best practice, and really sort of say, well, how do we scale? Like we've proved that there's value in AI. I don't think I need to sell that statement to anyone in this room. But how are we going to really sort of leverage that value effectively? And so the opportunity to sort of move into a fellowship role where I get to sort of think big questions and perhaps focus a little bit more is something that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I don't think you need to sell this audience on AI. But even though that's obvious to us, I mean, was it difficult to get management to buy into that? And how did you convince them that data would be important for building and solidifying these relationships with your customers?
I can go first. So, yes, the business buy-in is always a challenge, right? Building that true business case and getting the management buy-in. So, we have done is we really try to focus on the quick wins and look at how can we, through AI, enable or solve some of the business problems. So rather than taking an opportunistic view in terms of how we can advance our business, we started small. So we started with the quick wins and problem solving, and then we expanded our scope to looking at now from a future perspective where we want to take our organization. How do we support that and how do we help that, and then build your strategy around it and show that vision to not only your business people but everybody, because we always talk about selling it to the management. What I would like to encourage everyone is talk to every person, every customer of yours, see what their needs are, and try to align your strategy to your customers' needs and your business needs.
And was it through talking with customers that you found those quick wins? And how did you identify those?
Yeah, so both. So we have our branches as an FI, and we have our people facing customers. So we interviewed our people who were facing those challenges and who had that first-hand information from members. Our customers are called members. So they interviewed our members, but we also interviewed our members. So it was both internal as well as external perspective.
Yes. So absolutely agree. You really do need to begin with those quick wins. The good news is, and I learned this on day one, when you arrive at a financial services organization, you have more data than you can wrap your head around. It's an overwhelming amount of data, and the challenge becomes sort of figuring out, well, where are the pockets where I can really drive change? And I really agree with the focus on clients and working backwards from, what is going to be best for them. I think really if you start there, the business case can build itself, but you do need to align against those big drivers. The good news is that most financial services organizations have been in the business of effectively managing a ledger of data, making smart risk decisions, making smart client decisions for a long time. And so you have these sort of existing functions to really build on, and connecting with the subject matter experts in those areas was absolutely key in us understanding the problem of what type of data product would solve for this. And I think the language of data products was something that we probably came to a bit too late, honestly, because that really helps sort of solidify a tangible problem that can be solved through the application of data and a predictive element. And the product always has a client in mind, right? And so if you adopting that language, yes, we set up KPIs, and yes, we would sort of be able to sort of do some napkin math and say, well, we think we can reduce churn by 2% if we roll out this recommender system, and here's what that translates to in terms of happier clients and dollars in the bottom line. But that product language makes it tangible. And so finding a way to make it tangible, proving out that first quick win, it gets you that buy-in you need to continue to sort of build.
Yeah, and I like the data product framing, and I can see how when you build wins for customers or members, that can build a lot of value for your brand. But do you also need to worry about just internal tools? Because I imagine there are many opportunities to optimize inside. And are there different considerations when you're thinking about an internal data tool versus a customer-facing tool?
So I think there are plethora of technologies in the market right now. Even with one technology, you can see there are gazillion vendors and technologies you can choose. So from a technology perspective, yes, there's always a challenge because you have this wide range of technologies. So irrespective of which technologies you pick, whether it's internal or external, the key point that a lot of people miss is how do we integrate those technologies? And to Ian's point, that data and the data flow, I think that's where we don't focus. We get excited about all of these fancy tools and tools related to AI and ML, and we keep buying all of these tools. And this is what I've seen organizations kind of struggle through is, how do we now integrate? How do we make these tools talk to one another? How do we leverage the data? Now we have created so much data everywhere, to Ian's point again. How do we bring all of this together? How do we make sure that it means the same? Because what it means in one system may not mean the same. So there are a lot of challenges that you have to focus from internal perspective as well as external, because it's kind of the same data at the end of the day that you're looking at.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think it sort of speaks to the truth that you're really sort of trying to think through a data monetization problem. You're trying to get the organization to think about data as an asset that can help us control risks more effectively, that can help us sort of rise to the occasion and meet our customers how they need and expect us to. That is a conversation around how the organization uses data. It's bigger than a single AI application. It's bigger than sort of a single narrow vertical slice or product that you're solving for. And I think we were sort of fortunate enough to have an organization that brought together sort of data and AI in one area in a technology function, where we could also ask questions about the role of a citizen data scientist and what that future should look like, and how do we do a better job of really sort of rethinking how the organization thinks of data itself, because your recommender engine is just one narrow slice of the total sort of value potential of what you're really sort of thinking about here, like in terms of the total business opportunity.
Well, yeah, I mean, data is obviously the new oil. So, but when you're thinking about data, do you run into problems where you can't get access to the right data, or you don't have the right data? I mean, how do your organizations go about trying to get the right data into the right places at the right time? That must be a challenge.
Never happens. Yeah, no, it's always a struggle. It's always a struggle. Even if the data is accessible, is it usable? Of what quality? And then the huge element is the data is only ever the codified behaviors of humans interacting with systems, doing their best, right? And you may have had team members on the front lines for years adhering to a business process, or sort of adhering to a business process, or on a Tuesday maybe they're a little sleepy and they don't quite adhere to it as much as they should, and that's going to be captured in the data. And so I think really sort of data governance and the cleanliness of data as an asset. Like when we talk about data as an asset, you really do need to sort of start with the fundamentals of, well, how do we clean up what we have? And how do we do a better job of getting it all in one place, getting it modeled using sort of a common framework and making it usable? Because one of the big risks that Parul pointed out is that a lot of those quick wins, maybe just buying a tool, great, how does that integrate with your current data set? Do you have like fractions of your client that you've sort of sliced and that you're tracking in inaccessible pockets? And the answer is like, yeah, well, you really need to sort of treat that as a source of technical debt, a problem to be solved for, and then come up with a strategy about how you're going to bring the pieces together to create one clear view.
I would like to add to that. So thank you for bringing data governance. Very passionate about the space. I've spent more than a decade not only helping organizations build their data governance programs, but also I'm teaching at NATE the same course. So thank you for bringing that up. It's hard for people to, when they think of governance, like people always think, oh, there's bureaucracy now. We're talking now bureaucracy around data as well. What the hell is going on? So I'm really glad you mentioned that. What we did is the same problems, I just say ditto to whatever Ian said. So what we did at Services, my team turned that problem into an opportunity using AI. So what we struggle in FIs is our front-facing people, again, people at the branches who are helping our members, who are building those relationships with the members, they often don't have time to do these data cleanups. So we previously had, huge list of data-related problems that would go to the branches, ask them to clean those data sets, and that never happens. And then we are coming back again here at the corporate office complaining that, hey, nobody takes data seriously, nobody cleans that data. So then what my team did is we said, how about using AI for this? Now, not everything can be automated, but definitely there are places where you can use AI. So we use RPA, which is robotic process automation, to then generate automated scripts and help automate some of those data cleanups, which was massive. So we have been cleaning up millions of records since then, and helping our front-facing members to focus on our members instead of focusing on data. So definitely, again, just the point I want to make is look at those problems and see if you can turn that into an opportunity using AI.
So that's a great point. How do you turn these problems into opportunities? So let's suppose for a minute that you've got a lot of data and it's clean. Then how would you go about building a team to take advantage of this data? And so assume that you're starting a newer organization that hasn't adopted AI full-heartedly. So how do you find people who can help with governance, who can help with that data science, who can help with AI? How would you envision building such a team?
So are you talking about the knowledge and skills required, or just in terms of vision and strategy?
Yes.
Both? So I think in terms of vision and strategy, I already said align it to what your organization is trying to do. Look for those problems, look at what those opportunities are to help, again, achieve those strategic outcomes for the organization. That's well said, easy and done. But then when you go to the market and when you say, okay, now what? How do I find the resources? How do I build the team? So in terms of resources, the model we have used is we have internal resources. We also use partners and vendors available in this area. So where we don't have the necessary skills and we know it's going to take 9 to 10 months to bring those skill sets, we partner to augment those skill gaps. And then we, at the same time, parallelly develop those skill sets in-house as well. So we use kind of a hybrid model there.
So you can hire people in, you can upskill within your company, or you can outsource. Are those
Exactly.
the three?
And we use all those three techniques.
What about you, Ian? How did AI get built at ATB?
Well, so I think the clean data would have been amazing on day one. Joining the organization, I was the first person with the title data scientist. I was not the first data scientist at the organization. That is an organization that had been building, credit decisioning models, fraud detection models, client segmentation, sophisticated, actually really some brilliant work. And so I think one of the best things I did early on was connect with those individuals, understand their work. Because, financial services, the sort of fundamental mechanics of taking in deposits, making loans, doing it thoughtfully and smartly, monitoring for instances of fraud, and then providing sort of the basic sort of transactional services that are needed lead to some really common value opportunities. And the reality is you're going to have dedicated teams of experts who have been in that business for years, using data, using really, really complicated statistical analyses to solve those problems. The key is to still have strong opinions about where some new approaches, where some new technologies could help us do a better job, or could help us sort of approach those problems through new lens. But if you're not aware of where those key value drivers for your business are, client growth and experience, efficiency, anything you can do on efficiency, as well as additional client insights, you're not really going to be able to effectively align yourself against the conversations you need to have. And then I think you pull in those subject matter experts, you build that community, you get people sort of excited about what you need to do. I would say looking back on it, I do wish we'd brought in more folks who approached it as a software development problem early on. I think we all of us had a very strong research background, which was brilliant, which was great, tons of fun. But I think having that sort of helpful dose of cool, how are you going to build it, and then is there adequate documentation, and what parts of it can run itself so we don't have to. You want that in the room as early as possible.
Well said. I would like to add to the citizen model. So really the model is, teach others how to fish instead of fishing for them. So although we do have the centralized RPA team who will look after the standards and making sure we're consistent with our approach, we also, again, have enabled those people who have key interest in data space, who understand the business side of things as well, who understand our members well. So we have then enabled those people because there's a lot of plug-and-play technologies available these days. So with little training and coaching, you can enable those other people to help you. If you're a small organization, you have limited number of resources, and that's how you can scale up as well.
Now, when you're thinking about, let me change hats for a minute and put on my educator hat. We are training lots and lots of students in Alberta. We want them to stay in Alberta. What do you think, how do you find hiring? Do you have to reach outside of province? Are you able to find students inside of province? Or what kind of challenges do you see to hiring these days?
I'll be honest, keeping people contained within Alberta is challenge because it's a global economy. With pandemic, it's gone even more global. So we do have to look at talent outside Alberta as well. We've recently changed our HR and hiring policies to make sure we get the best talent, right, irrespective of where they are. But the good news is I just recently read in one of the Accenture reports that by 2035, Accenture says that there will be 97 million jobs in AI in Canada. And that's very positive for organizations like us. And Alberta is doing great in this area. I think we just need to provide opportunities for our local talent here. And Service Credit Union is definitely partnering with U of A and other universities. I'm teaching at NATE as well, so we have partnership there as well. So, through those partnerships, we are definitely encouraging to hire local talent. And really provide those opportunities for our people. So definitely a long way to go.
I'd echo all of that. Stammering here. I'm so excited about the talent market. I would say, really 2 years ago, everything changed in terms of the dynamics of that market. It really became a global competition, which is an exciting opportunity for anyone who with a passion for AI in this province, because the opportunities are global. You can be here and work competitively anywhere. Where you're building a team within Alberta, I think what becomes key is sort of being sort of thoughtful about who you're looking for and having that clarity of purpose. We're here to, every team I've been a part of so far at ATB has been passionate about solving real problems with AI, not just sort of talking about it or thinking about it in the abstract, but really sort of finding something meaningful and sort of building systems that can solve for that thing and then owning that at the end of the day. So we have those opportunities to do just that here in the province, and where we have talent accelerators like the U of A or internship programs that we've partnered up with AltaML recently to do those. There are such great opportunities for up and coming talent out there. And what I've noticed is that the talent that come in often have a really tremendous portfolio already, which was not the case sort of 4 years ago. You may be sort of talking to someone who would sort of show you their master's thesis work, which was very interesting usually, but the opportunity to participate in forums like this, to participate in public competitions, to build a real portfolio of code that solves problems and to show how you think and how you sort of solve for that problem is so different than it was just a few years ago.
That's really interesting because when I talk to students, I always encourage them to build stuff in GitHub, have products you can show off. If you were going to give some advice to either current students or people who are looking to upskill and maybe move into finance, what recommendations would you have for them? Would it be go try to do something in the real world with real data? Are there other pieces of advice you could give them to try to break into this industry?
Absolutely build, roll up your sleeves, try stuff, and like I think because when we're hiring, we want to see how you solve for problems. How does this person approach problems? What are they excited about? What are maybe the things that they could use some support in, right? But mostly like it's a portfolio is a chance to show how you reason through a problem, and to do that way more effectively than I can do in a 60-minute job interview where I throw some business case use cases at someone. So really, I think have fun, build a portfolio, and be intentional about what you're learning with each project, and really capture that so you can express that clearly. That is, I think, the best thing you could really sort of do for your career right now.
And I would like to add again, second what Ian said, just keep an open mind. Like with AI, the sky's the limit. You have so many opportunities day in and day out. And even if you are not able to build anything, even if you are able to have an eye for ideas and how you can change the world around you, how you can make somebody's lives better, how you can make it more productive or efficient, I would really encourage those kind of people as well who may not have the background, who want to learn, but have that kind of a mindset along with the skills that Ian is mentioning. So definitely try out new things, look for opportunities. If you see a problem, as Ian said, see how can you turn that into an opportunity.
Awesome. Okay, so now we've got our data, it's clean, we've built our team, we've hired a bunch of great people. Now, when I'm thinking about AI, I like to think of AI as either improving an existing process, automating, cleaning, making things better, faster. But in some cases, you can also get AI to do things for you that wouldn't be possible without it, because it was either impractical or, so for instance, having a personal recommender system. You just couldn't do that without AI. So when your institution is thinking about what problem should we tackle, do you think about those two use cases differently, the improving an existing process versus trying to do something completely new? Or I see Ian shaking his head. Oh. No.
Sorry, I have a loud face. I've been told that something I've learned in a life on virtual meetings. I think I actually think we probably touched upon that earlier because I think the answer is no. I think the right problem aligns against a real need of a client. Right, something that the organization really needs to move the needle on. It would be, at least in my experience, it's rare for that to be completely net new, a completely net new value stream where you're really sort of tackling it from a very sort of experiential, experimental perspective. Instead, it's probably something where you have some existing mixture of smart people, business process, a dash of analytics, some kind of governance, right? And the opportunity is to sort of come in and say, well, how do we sort of improve upon that? But in improving upon that, you may completely sort of reimagine it to such an extent that you can now do things you could never do before. Like a good example of this is one of the things I've been most surprised by and proud of over the last 2 years in terms of our own sort of advancing AI capabilities has to do with information retrieval. So that's like the process by which you get information which is stuck in paper out of paper and into our databases, right? Because paper is the worst. It slows everything down, and every time you have paper as part of a business process, that process now stops and you need a human to read the paper, then manually enter into the system, and maybe they do a good job, maybe they don't, right? Like you'll find out later. It slows things down. Particularly like a loan fulfillment is a good example of that. You may have information coming in from third-party insurers, from the client themselves, from a lawyer's office, and you need pieces of information that you can get into the system so you can fulfill that loan and also sort of track how it's performing over time. We did an early pilot blending robotic process automation with sort of computer vision, natural language processing to try to automate some of that fulfillment end to end for like one particular type of paper. As we went, we found that the problems we were solving for were generalizable, right? We weren't actually just solving for like this particular type of paper. We had a general purpose table extractor and then a thing that could find the information in the table, right? Like the problem became more and more atomic. But what happened at one point was the team, in sort of thinking about it, and each time it advanced, they got faster and faster and faster in terms of the number of pipelines that they could stand up. It came to a point where they thought, like, this is actually just a general machine learnable problem about how we get information out of any type of document. And they approached it from that perspective, right? They use a visual question answering approach to solve for it, which is a really kind of novel approach. Well, now we have like a generalizable toolkit that basically anyone can use, and a process that took a team 6 months, I think, on our first pilot. In an afternoon, a couple days with follow-up, a single team member can now stand up their own end-to-end pipeline. And so these automation pipelines, it's a pile of paper bigger than the Willis Tower. It would take 7 years to read through, and just the worst years, right? Reading through, lawyer letters, trying to figure out, not fun. And like the team's targeting the Burj. I think that by the end of this year, like we'll have to pick near orbit objects really soon, but just of wasted time. Well, now we can begin to take that same capability and say, where else is information stuck in documents that would take us an impossible amount of time to read, a risk for us? Like where do we maybe have risks of data exfiltration? How do we sort of wrap our arms around the data in the organization when a lot of it is trapped up in paper? Before, we could never have taken a run at that. Right? And so you begin with something really mundane, like we're trying to get information out of a table. But what it can lead to, an investment in the exact same capability and the same really, really smart team who helped push this forward, is something that allows you to tackle problems that the business is facing, but maybe wasn't even thinking about as real problems.
Yeah. And so really your question is whether we create opportunities net new or whether we problem solve, right? So at the end of the day, again, to Ian's point, we are trying to create a value, whether it's a net new value that your customer or your end user have never thought about, or is it a problem that exists today for them and you're trying to solve. I feel like from a maturity of the AI industry, we are in a zone where we are trying to problem solve and kind of prove the value. And we are investing in huge number of dollars to show that this makes sense, because there's a lot of apprehension still around AI, its ethical use, and we'll talk about the challenges, but there's a lot of challenges. That's why we are focusing as an industry, not just our organization, more so on the problem solving. But again, we can look at opportunities outside of that, as Ian said, to see how we can create value. At the end of the day, it has to make sense for the people. So for example, what Apple did, like iPhone, they created iPhone and all of a sudden it became a need. All those chat applications, our Facebook and other applications, we didn't need it until they existed. Even VR, we didn't need it until it came into being, right? So what I would encourage people to look at AI and say, how do we do things differently? But at the end of the day, it has to create value for your customers or end users.
Yeah, I definitely didn't need 15 different USB connectors until Apple told me I did for the different phones.
Sadly.
So then once you build something that to solve a particular customer member problem, now if you were in a startup, you could just walk across the room and tell everyone what you did and find other places to use it. But once you get to a larger organization, do you have any advice for how once you solve a problem, how you could try to identify other places in your organization where your same tool could be either directly used, like you were talking about the VQA, or adapted? Because it seems like that problem identification across the company could be pretty difficult.
So as I think Ian kind of answered that earlier, he did mention that once you solve one problem in one area, you can apply those skills, the knowledge you've developed, the problem-solving abilities in other areas as well. So your problem shifts, but your approach to that doesn't typically shift. You can standardize on some of those aspects. So in that sense, there's a lot of expertise around us. There's a lot of knowledge where we can learn from each other, or things like these these conferences and other areas, we definitely can learn from each other and then apply those developed skills and experiences from one another in different areas. Again, one of the things I would say is look for problems that are common in the first, if you're like a startup and trying to scale up, look for problem statements that are similar, so you're not putting in too much effort and trying to really look at different kinds of data and then clean that data up to our earlier discussion and focus too much on that upfront issue. So if you have like a specific set of data which is reliable, you can come at it from that way as well and say, now that I have this good data, how can I leverage this? What are some of the other problems I can solve within the organization? So you can come at it in two ways. Look at the business problem and see how you can leverage data to solve it, or come at it from a truly data-driven perspective that now that I have this data, what business problem I can solve.
We've borrowed, and I think quite effectively, a lot of tools from product management. And that involves things like design think workshops. So you work with a group of people who maybe have similar problems within the business, and you begin to sort of map those problems out in terms of, well, what would an ideal solution look like? You can begin to sort of distill those into a number of opportunities. And we've taken many runs at that in the past, whether through capacity or our own sort of ability to scale. We've tried to sort of do it in pockets of the organization. So, where the data science team will come in, we'll partner with you, we'll run a design think workshop, we'll identify the sort of big AI opportunities in your space. Then comes feasibility. So once we know where the opportunities are, sure, but what can you do? Like, do you have the data? Can we build it? And I think that's where those existing capabilities change the math on that, right? Like when you invest in something like information retrieval that scales, suddenly those high, maybe medium value information retrieval opportunities become much easier to solve for, and they become much more likely for you to sort of be able to pull those into your shop. But I'd say the real opportunity is to have that exact same conversation, but across the entire enterprise, and to do it the one time. Because you may find yourself in the pocket where you're sort of over-serving certain pockets of your business, right? Based on maybe who you know, who's loudest, who you've had the cups of coffee with, right? And so to have that conversation with the enterprise allows you to sort of truly align against enterprise objectives. And this can be huge for support. But it also requires a lot of education up front. And I think education at all levels, and really sort of walking in and kind of demystifying a little bit about what AI is, but a lot about what it's for, and a lot about how to think about how AI shows up in our lives now, and the products and services in which it does add value today, becomes a sort of necessary pre-work to having those workshops with a large group of people.
Yeah, as a reinforcement learning practitioner, a lot of my job is trying to explain what this tool is, because if it's the right, if you have the right nail, it's a great hammer. But until people understand what reinforcement learning can do, it's going to be hard to find a good use case for it. But so now we said before that it's probably good to get some quick wins, and we were building up your capabilities. How do you identify longer term projects? So if there's a good business case for something that could take 2 years before it pays off, is that ever feasible, or do you try to come up with intermediate goals that will build value along the way?
Yeah, so definitely with the world we are in today, nobody has patience to wait for a product for 3 years, right? We want everything now, right then and there. And so does our customers. They want things to be quick, fast, and easy. So we do, for those kind of long-term projects, we look at something called incremental value. So how can we build the end value we are trying to achieve in chunks, right? What can we enable now versus what can we enable 3 years down the line? So we focus on building those incremental values. And again, as Ian mentioned, we use those product development life cycles and methodologies to expedite on things and measure ourselves and build those KPIs. I think measuring value throughout your journey, if those are long-term projects, definitely help keep the momentum Because if you're not able to show the value, then you lose that kind of interest, you lose your funding that you've received, and it just that whole enthusiasm is gone. So I think that's what I would say, focus on building that incremental value for the long-term projects.
And I think that requires you to have really strong opinions and to have sort of voiced throughout your organization about what you think AI is for. Like, where do you think it can add value in your organization? Growth, efficiency, insights, great. What does that roadmap look like? Where are we today? Where would we like to get to? Those capabilities, each project you build internally gives you a chance to mature those capabilities foundationally, which allows you to sort of tackle more and more and more. But I think the other piece of that is you can't just in terms of sheer headcount build your way out of every situation, right? And so what you buy and being very thoughtful about what you buy in terms of the capabilities that are strategic enablers for where you want to go is crucial, as is partnering. And that may be partnering around a particularly nasty research spike. We've done some really great work over the last few years with the U of A on really sort of thinking through some problems about time series data. There are opportunities to sort of take pieces of the puzzle and partner up around them so that you're not trying to sort of deal with the entire lift yourself. And that can be a great way to help break down some big initiatives.
Right, and I'm really glad that you called out opinions, because I have lots of strong opinions. They're not usually right, but when we're thinking about AI, I think Ian's example of 7 years of processing paper, like we want AI systems to do things that either we can't do now or humans don't want to do. I mean, one of the fears when you talk to people on the street and say, "Oh, I work in AI," and one of the reactions you can get is, "Oh, you're going to take my job away." And I've seen in practice that's often not true, because AI lets people focus on the things that people are good at, and let AI focus on the things that AI is good at. Have you had any examples inside your company other examples where AI has really enabled people to do their job better?
Yeah, lots of them actually. So one of the example is really our financial advisors, again, who are helping members, through their financial fitness journey. What happens is in an FY, you have lots of policies and procedures, and then there's different business lines within a financial institution, which is you have retail, you have your business, you have your wealth members. So there's a whole bunch of different lines of businesses and different again types of members. So imagine different policies and procedures and pages of documentation you're looking at. And nobody wants to do that. Like, you, again, want the information right at your fingertips. So that's where we have used AI and helping our FAs to automate. We are still in the pilot mode, but that's where we are kind of automating things for our people so that they don't feel like now AI is replacing them. Now they feel more empowered because now they have more time. We have helped save a ton of time. So I think when we build, to your point again, thank you for bringing this question, because I think there's a very important point here is when we build those business cases, we want to make sure we evaluate, again, the feasibility and all of those things, but also make sure we capture how it is going to enable and build that productivity for people. That has always been part of our AI discussions as far as the quick wins go, and that's why we got buy-in right away and very quickly. So those SMEs, they were part of the whole AI process through and through, because they exactly know what to expect out of that engagement. Oftentimes it becomes a technology thing, and then people who are kind of affected or kind of using it, they're not in the loop. And that's why there's this whole anxiety and fear and apprehension around AI. So if you get them involved right from the get-go, I think that solves half your battles.
Yeah, and sometimes when you start talking about AI with people, they're, "Oh, that's AI? That just looks like statistics," or "That just looks, oh, that's too simple. That can't be AI." Well, so we're coming up on about 8 minutes left. Let me ask you to look in your crystal ball. So we've seen now that we're getting more data, we're hiring good people, we've got our teams, we're starting to build. Where do you see AI and finance in your company going in the next few years? Do you see just going in the same direction and changing, incorporating new ideas? If you had to predict, where things would be in 2 or 3 years, where would you place your bet?
So I think right now when we speak of AI, we talk a lot about automation, right? Like that's where we are thinking right now. That's where a lot of industries are. Where I see it shifting is from an automation to open market. Because we are now global, we have an open market, we have fintechs in the play as well. There will be a good shift in how we operate with one another. So how do we now take all of those services and package it for a member? And those services may not be that particular FI providing as a primary business. It could be multiple FIs coming together to help the member. And this concept is known as open banking, and Canada is pioneering in that. We are so lucky that we have appointed a person, a leader in that area who is helping move Canada in that direction of open banking, where all of these players, especially if you are a startup in AI space, this is the time. This is where all of us can come together and use AI to help somebody create that value for somebody. So I think there's going to be a shift from fixing problems, automation, to how do we really truly enable across the board? How do we truly help them in their life? So what we also do is we have something called member journeys. So when we look at our customers or members, we look at their life journeys and we say, in their lifetime, what kind of services and products they would need. And then rather than member coming to us, we reach out to them. So for example, let's say there is a member called Joe Smith. Rather than Joe Smith coming to us, we go to Joe Smith and say, hey, Joe Smith, your daughter Shelly is now graduating next month. And so, we can help her with opening her savings account or whatever. So transforming that language from a member or customer coming to you going to them, something like an Amazon, that would be my kind of ideal dream, to have in an FI Amazon, where you pick the products and services, you add them in cart, you don't care which FI it is coming from, which fintech is supporting it, and you just have everything in that one portal. That will be my dream come true.
And I think that move to open banking will be incredibly transformative, although I hope we only borrow pieces of the Amazon model. I think the other shift, though, with that, like with the shift to really banks being viewed more as a trust and identity broker of key data and sort of connecting you with an associated net of services that may be offered by third parties or trusted parties, is a shift in the expectations of our clients about how that relationship should work. Who has access to their data? What data? So what do I get in return? And I think for me, this is sort of tied to, a broader conversation, which, we'll be having more this afternoon around responsible AI and shifting sort of perspectives and awareness, across society in terms of the role that data and AI plays in impacting our lives, and what should our expectations be of companies that broker and trade in our data, and what should I expect to return? Perhaps I should be getting a piece back of loaning out more data to you. Or, well, what does that model look like? I know, though, numerous organizations are already sort of leaning into that idea of, well, how do we make the data trail more auditable so that I could be called one day and remove a client's data entirely, from their entire footprint if needed. So I think those shifting client expectations are going to fundamentally sort of change the model around anyone who sort of builds with client data and has that as part of their business strategy.
Yeah, and that's really exciting when you think about it's both a technology and a societal problem. You need to educate people on what their data is worth, but also have the technical wherewithal to make it private and make it fair, try to take away biases. So this was really great. I'm really glad you both were able to come out here and talk. Maybe to finish up, we've got this audience here, lots of AI enthusiasts. Do you have anything that you'd like to say to them that we haven't really covered in the question so far? What do you think is most exciting? What would you have them know?
Most exciting. Well, I think always I would direct folks, if they're very interested in these concepts of trust and identity, to check out our ATB Ventures page. That features some of the really sort of innovative work of our ATB Ventures team, who's sort of exploring the fringe of some of these ideas before we sort of bring them back into the mothership proper. So yeah, I guess I would definitely put in a plug, as well as put in a plug for the Responsible AI panel this afternoon, which I think will have a really informative and enlightening discussion.
Yeah, and I think one thing I would want to leave the audience with is, look at different opportunities. And it starts from your home. So I want to kind of close it with a personal story. I'm a working mom. For me, what makes a difference in people's life is saving time, because that's personal to me. I always cannot find enough time in life. No matter how good technologies and things I use for time management and everything, there's always not enough time. So for me, it is a personal thing to help people save their time. And at home, I have a small AI which basically prints, I'm an Indian, so we make rotis, if you're aware of that. And so it literally prints rotis for me. It has saved my life tremendously. I don't eat roti on a regular basis, but when I have guests coming in for like 25, 30 people, it just I just put a number, I can use my phone to program it, and it just prints rotis. I just put the raw materials, right? So it starts small. It starts from home. You don't always have to think about an industry or an FI. Although I'm from FI, there's definitely tons of use cases in the FI space, but you can start small with your own self and see how can you use AI in your day-to-day lives. What can you help solve your own problem before solving others' problems? And I think that's where your interest, your motivation comes in, and a lot of learning for sure, that then you can apply across industries and help solve other people's problems.
Amazing. Yes, right now I have some ribs going in my sous vide at home, and it's Wi-Fi controlled. That's a great example, though, of identifying problems for yourself, but also for your customers. So, Parul, Ian, thank you so much for coming out and talking about AI and finance today. I'm sure we all learned a lot. And if people have questions, we'll be happy to talk to you afterwards. But I think we need to wrap up here. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us over. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much.